be derogatory about it, but I do want to say that. So I run a couple of groups. One of them is my actual group that I made. It's a Honda Element like niche group for camping and overland builds for these cars and stuff. Um, Now, every so often, I use that at everyone tag, and I only do that like once a month because I do a cover photo contest every month. So, because I just passed 7,000 members yesterday in my group. Um, so there's a lot of people in there, and there's a lot of cool Honda elements that people have in there. So I give everybody the opportunity, like every couple weeks, I just say, hey, cover photo time, photo with the most likes, you get the cover photo for this month or whatever. Every single time I do it, there's at least probably 5 to 10 people in there that cry about the everyone tag. And it's, dude, every group that I'm in or that I manage, people cry about the at everyone. Like, why do you have to tag everybody? I'm like, bro, how fragile is your life that a simple Facebook notification just sent your day sideways? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're getting an Amber Alert on your phone that I just tagged you, bro. It's just another notification in your feed. That's it.
Yeah, they want to use you as a punching bag when they do that.
Dude, honestly, I think at this point, people only are so against it because it's become just like a socially trendy thing to hate. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, there's no reason to hate it. But because everybody else says they hate it, now this guy says he hates it, or she says she hates it. There's no reason to hate it. You know what I mean? And if you value the group, I'm going to give some perspective from somebody that runs a group. Um, if you enjoy that group, and I work really hard to vet the people that are coming in, it's a private group, so I vet everybody. I look at what other groups they're in, where they're from, whatever. If you're not in any of the mutual Honda Element groups that I'm in, there's probably a reason why. So I vet everybody. So if you enjoy the group that you're taking part in and you don't want it to die because engagement is low, the posts are getting no reach to other members. It turns into any other group. I see groups all the time that have 500,000 plus members, especially car groups. I manage one. It has over 700,000 people. But because the group was managed poorly and the people in there weren't vetted, you'll see a post go in there, like a cool ass car photo post. It's been up for 6 hours. It probably has 25 likes. That is horrible.
For 500,000 followers or 700,000? Yeah,
700,000
horrible.
people in that group. That is terrible engagement. So, like, that group died, right? So, I try not to do that. So, yeah, some groups, especially like meme groups and stuff, admins abuse that. But in a situation like with me, where I'm running a niche specific group with a lot of really cool people, a lot of them, they live in their element full time and travel. And, so it's a really cool group. So the at everyone thing I think is brilliant because every so often, if you notice that your group is in decline because you can see all your stats, like you can see all the statistics for the group for that month or whatever. If I see it diving down, then I'm going to use it to try and get engagement drummed
And
up.
you can do that on a profile page too.
Up to, so you can do highlight, but highlight only works for your friends list, not your followers.
Interesting.
And then I believe I don't have it now, but the thing that I heard from some of the the monetization groups that I'm in, where people talk about it and whatever. The word on the street is that up until you have 100,000 followers, you can use, I think, something like that. Oh no, you know what it is? I have it mixed up. So there's an ability up to 100,000 followers. Everybody that likes your post, you can go through and they'll have a little invite button next to them. That's what.
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
Followers is only for groups and pages. I had it mixed up.
Okay.
The invite button, so you can allow yourself to grow to 100,000. Once you're over 100,000, then you don't have it anymore.
See, the cool thing about the at everyone or even highlight is, depending on how the Facebook algorithm is working, it doesn't show everyone your stuff. Like people might even want to see your stuff. It's just not showing it to them. And in
Well,
that
and
case, the at everyone button could be good in that case to get them to see it.
It's ironic right here, and I'll even show you. So I'm going to go to my group real quick, and I'm going to set up like I'm going to tag everyone in a post, right? So yeah, this is my group, man. It's cool. There's a lot of people in there. And
Honda Element, put it up again. Let's see it. Honda Element Camping and Overland. And yeah, this is Andrew Delgado, everyone, for everyone who doesn't know. He's got over 1 million followers on his main car page on Facebook. And this one here, how many does that have?
It's just 7,000 members. Like I said, it's very niche kind of community. It's very like van life-ish. Like I'll give you an example. The kid in the cover photo, David, shout out David Joyce. He is 20 years old. This kid travels the country and he lives in that element. You could see that and he specializes in fixing elements. So he'll say like, hey guys, he's not the only one that does it. There's a few people, but he'll be like, hey guys, I'm going to be in the Southeast region from this date to this date. If you need any repairs on your element, let's set it up or whatever. So like, it's a really cool group. But anyway, yeah. So if I go to @everyone, some members might receive notifications.
I see.
You have the ability to not be tagged in that. So like, I don't know how to do it because I never looked into it, but there is a way to turn off notifications from pages or groups so that even if they are using the @everyone, which you can only use once a day, you won't get notified. There is a way to do it.
I've never done it once, and I may as well try on my page, like my profile page. I mean, why not? The worst that can happen is someone gets mad at me, but do it once a day. And if engagement is lagging, like why not? Why not try to pop it in there once a day? Like what would be the downside?
Yeah, people don't look at it like that. They're just like, for some reason, they just get really butthurt about the notification popping up. And not to be like rude to some people, but I'm like, buddy, this might be the only notification you got all day. Just take what you can get. What I mean? Like, not even to be like not to be that guy, but like.
No, see, like as a fellow creator yourself, like you really begin to see. Got some technical difficulties there.
Yeah, my iPad slipped.
You see how like upset just the smallest of things can be for people. And I do think they do just use content creators as a punching bag sometimes. Like they're having a bad day.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just go at Andrew. Let's go at Jared here. Who cares? And you have to develop a thick skin over the years and over time.
I just ignore it. I mean,
That's the best way. It's the best way.
People try and make fun of the content that I share. I'm like, listen, man, this is what's been working for me. I don't mind posting it. I'm a car guy, whatever. It gets people involved. It got me over 1 million followers, whatever. But I hear it. They make fun of the content. They say that I buy all my followers because, listen, for whatever reason, I have a lot of out of foreign accounts that follow me. I don't know why, man. I didn't pay to do that. Or my favorite one that seems to be kind of a trendy thing that people say to kind of bash content creators is, all this drama to make 50 cents or something. I'm like, you need to humble yourself, my boy, because,
That's more than 50 cents. I mean, especially for you. I mean, it's a real income at that point. Like, I won't say what it is, but it's not nothing. It's not nothing, and it's something to be taken seriously.
Yeah, it's not nothing, man. But I wish more people listen. Full transparency. I used to hate Facebook. I used to hate it. I would only go on there to just make fun of something or just say something edgy because whatever. I used to hate it. I used to hate social media, and then if you stay focused and you just network with the right people X out all the people that bring no value to your news feed as best as you can, and figure out a strategy. And if you can get monetized and you have a strategy, man, it'll change your life. It changed my life, dude. Like, absolutely did. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not rich, I'm not even close, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a whole lot better than nothing.
Absolutely.
I think we went over like some of the numbers, but like, it was crazy in the beginning of the program because they were trying to figure out how to pay people, and some people made out like bandits, but now it's not like that. But with the right strategy, and with consistency and just interesting stuff, it'll pay your bills. You know what I mean? So I think people need to humble themselves a little bit and understand that we live in an age now, and I say this all the time to people that I know or I'm talking to, that you almost need an excuse to work a regular job anymore. There is so much opportunity out there now to make money online that there's, other than, I'll give kind of like an oddball scenario that I would totally say, fine, I understand if you're like, a young family, you got a couple of kids and, whatever, you don't have the time to build something. But other than that, man, especially like if you're single or, you don't have kids or things like that, there's no reason why you should not find a way to generate an income online.
Well, think about that too. Social media in general, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Facebook Marketplace, it's a whole new industry that has really only been here since 2007, 8-ish, maybe a little before. Yeah. So that's 15 years about. It's like 16 years. But how much money is in this sector between YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? Billions and billions.
I'd say almost trillions. I mean, look at Mr. Beast. If he saved all his money, he'd be a billionaire. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's got to at least be $100 billion industry doing content. I mean, look at what it's doing to TV. You know what I mean? Like, TV's starting to die out because, like,
no one needs it.
You don't need it.
We got this. Who needs TV when we got this?
I got everything I'd ever want to watch right here or on this iPad here. You know what I mean? Like, so, I'm a huge advocate for social media in a sense where if you use it appropriately and you're trying to build a brand or a business, then it's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough, man. And
anyone can have a passion, and you can turn that passion into the very least, a side income. Right? Yeah. It takes a little while. It takes some consistency. Yeah. It takes some hard work, no doubt. But you can create a YouTube channel about a passion of yours. And if it's a passion of yours, chances are it can be a passion for someone else too. And it's probably even easier to do that on Facebook. Like, just start creating content that people would want to see on Facebook or Instagram and watch your following grow that way. Like, you have a service-oriented business too, right? So you do some detail work and other things like that as well. So you got both sides of it covered.
And what's interesting about that, and I'm going to give more kudos to Facebook on this one, is that, now listen, it hasn't been consistent because I haven't been consistent with it because I'm focusing more on social media now, and doing the detailing has kind of fallen to the side a little bit. But there was a point where I would spend, on average, $500 to $800 a month on advertising, but I would make, anywhere from 10 to 15,000 a month, and only using Facebook for advertising. I've never done Google ads. I don't post anything on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. I don't make any kind of short form content around detailing on Facebook or anything like that. All I did was focus on getting as many 5-star reviews as I could and just take good photos and literally, if you have a service-based business, the easiest way to get started with Facebook ads is just have a good photo or video, a good description of what the service that you're selling is. In my case, I use Facebook to run sales. So a service that might be $3,000 at another shop, I'll sell it for a third because whatever, that's fine with me. It's only me, I'm mobile, whatever. And then from there, you just set your audience. If you've ever tried to set up an ad, you set your audience for, like, for instance, what I do, I target ages 30 to 65. And then I pick my town and I set the radius for 20 miles. And then I spend on average probably $20, $25 a day. And it just rolls in from there. You know what I mean? And if you got the right setup going, and sometimes you might have to make a few different ones to find something that works. But once you do, then your return on investment will be great. You know what I mean? If you're selling the right service, and again, it's all a case by case thing. You know,
I think it's needed in today's world too, because a lot of the jobs that are out there in the brick and mortar industry, like with inflation and stagflation, people just don't get by as well as they used to. The cost of goods has all gone up. Now, granted, there's people that are going to be nurse practitioners and things like that. They're going to be good. But like regular nurses, accountants, regular kinds of people, it's hard for them now. And I think it's kind of pushing people into this direction where you do need multiple incomes. And if you have a family, yeah, usually both people need to work in a lot of cases, right? And rare cases when they don't. But that's what's required in this day and age right now, and I think that is what social media provides people an opportunity to do. Like, it gives you that chance to try to fill in some of the gaps. Now, it's a different argument to say, well, you shouldn't have to do that. That's a sign of the times. But it's like, well, it's here. So what are you going to do? Well, are you going to focus on how it should be or how it is?
Well, and it's the same thing that you would hear if you were a business owner at a network meeting: adapt or die.
Yeah.
You either just suck it up and go with what works, or you don't and you suffer. And that's not a blanket statement. Some people are legitimately in a position they cannot get out of for a multitude of reasons. But if you are a physically abled, young, healthy, intelligent human being, then there's no reason why you can't build something better for yourself. Like, you got to step out, man. You know what I mean? It's not easy. I'm not going to act like it was easy at all. You know, especially at the detailing business, man, I've got years of literal blood, sweat, and tears. I know that sounds generic, but there were times I cried. There were times that I bled, and, you know, there's a lot of sweating involved when you're slinging a 10-pound polisher around a car for hours on end, right, out in the summer heat. You know what I mean?
And you've taken a lot of chances with that too. Like, you've gone across country to take some of these chances too. You've taken some risks.
Yeah, well, when my job opportunity in Texas didn't work out, I still managed to blow myself up thanks to Facebook. Still managed to blow myself up, get busy, and have a steady income. And then when we left Texas, went back to Jersey. You know, it's funny because I was born and raised there, Jersey, but I did not have as much support ever as you would think. I can count on 1.5 hands how many people that I actually know have ever purchased a service for me. And I'm not that expensive in comparison to other people, right? I've always been on the more affordable side because I think higher volume, whatever, you know what I mean? Again, I'm not a huge operation. If I made $10,000 in a month, man, I'm good. You know what I mean?
But sounds like there's some jealousy from these other people here that didn't want to help you or support you.
I mean, I'm not going to say that. My first instinct is going to be like, it's hard out there for people right now. And, you know, even me, I'd be like, why am I going to spend $500 to have my car cleaned right now? You know what I mean? Like, I don't need that right now. You know, I get it. There might be some jealousy or some kind of whatever going on there. But what I was getting at is that I came back to Jersey and yet again was able to slay for spring and summer. When you're in the Northeast doing what I do, it's a seasonal thing. Fall and winter, it's tough. It slows down, back to school, holidays. Unless you have a shop and you're offering basic detailing, I only offer specialized services. So I don't do like interior cleanings or anything like that. I only do like paint polishing and advanced forms of paint protection. But it's a very seasonal thing. But again, Facebook carried me. I just made an ad and just sent it. By now I have enough experience using ads, where I know kind of what's going to work and what's not. But again, as soon as we got back to Jersey, boom, sent it, took a shot in the dark, and stayed busy all spring and summer. And, that mixed with social media and things like that made it through the fall and the winter pretty good. And then now we're back up here. And I will admit that with the detailing aspect, it's not as busy as it was when I left 2 years ago. It's definitely been pretty slow, especially for June. But again, thankfully, I've been blessed and, figured out a way to have an additional source of income. But yeah, man, I wish more people could just understand that, like, you got one life to live. I'm not going to say like YOLO or anything like that, but you got one life to live. And I understand how hard it is to break free from that programming. Not a tinfoil hat thing or anything like that, but this is something that I actually still struggle with, right? And I'll give you a perfect example. Detailing, I don't want to do it anymore. It's beating up my body. It's pain in the ass dealing with, prospect customers and things like that, customer service. Like, I'm an introvert. It's a very extroverted job, especially when you're trying to sell somebody something expensive. Now, I want to transition completely away from it and make money with my camera, primarily. But I was just having this conversation with my wife. Since I was 14 years old, I've had nothing but laborious jobs. My first job was McDonald's. I know there's a lot of things out there about like, oh, that's not real work. Well, I'll tell you what, I challenge anybody to go work that McDonald's on a main highway that I worked at on a Saturday and Sunday morning for a breakfast rush. Man, it's not fun. It's hot. There's a lot of running around. People think, oh, just flipping burgers. God, I hate flipping burgers. I hate that. There's a lot more to that, man. And like, I'm way beyond fast food work and income, but I still understand and respect. It's not just flipping burgers. You're dealing with people. First of all, you're dealing with American people, rude all the time, everybody. And then you're running around the kitchen. You got to haul this 30-pound bag of syrup or whatever. Like, you're always moving stuff around too, and man, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second.
Well, two things. I think everyone should work a restaurant job at some point. I think it teaches you how to deal with people. It teaches you how to deal with a fast-paced work environment and just being social. I think it's great for anyone to do. And I also wanted to circle back to some of your experience with one of your employers there about how that kind of your experience with more of like a toxic manager and how you had to deal with that. I think that would be interesting to hear too.
Are you talking about down south? Okay. Yeah, because I figured that's why we were going to get into this, because we did talk about this. But I attempted to go back to a 9-to-5. Now, before I take the next step into this conversation, I'm just going to put out a warning out there. If you ever are in a position to go out on your own and work for yourself, you will never, ever work for someone again. You will not. I don't know why I did. I don't know why I tried, but I thought I was really cool with the guy. We talked on the phone almost every day for what felt like, I don't know, 2 years maybe. And he offered me a really good position. It it seemed really good. We talked all the numbers out, and within 2 to 3 years, there would have been potential of at least 50, maybe 60 grand a month in the corporate position I was supposed to be in. That's why I left and went down there. I shut my shop down. My wife was pregnant with our second daughter at the time. And we just packed up and moved 1,800 miles, and everything seemed great. And then everything was great until it wasn't. And I started getting really stressed out because I moved all this way for one job position, and then I get handed like an employee contract, and the job description was not what I was told I was coming to do. It was something different, which was not going to pay nearly the same, despite me probably still having, because it was going to be like social media content and stuff like that for the company. But anyway, so the first couple days that I start work, we took a week, then I started working, and they were going to move warehouses and in the same complex, but they were getting a bigger warehouse because the company was growing. And so the first like 2-3 days, it was kind of one of those like, hey, this is what's going on. So why don't you just go hop in there and just help fill out orders and pack stuff and label bottles, whatever. I'm going to be very vague about what the job was because I am technically under NDA, and I don't think anybody cares what the company is, to be honest. Yeah, so those couple of days of working in the warehouse and doing kind of the very base level work in the company ended up kind of turning into like 6 weeks of me making what was the equivalent of about $17 an hour. Now, this really stressed me out because there was no communication. I had just shut down a detailing shop that I took years to build and was making on average $800 to $1,500 a day. Threw that all away. And now I'm 1,800 miles. First of all, I've never been on the other side of the Mississippi from the East Coast. Let's start there, right? I was in uncharted territory. I've never been to Texas, never wanted to go to Texas. It was never on my radar other than to make good money. And so now I'm really stressed out. I mean, it got to a point, man, I was smoking 2 packs a day. That's how bad it got. Like, I'm still at like 3/4 of a day now, but like I was at 2 packs a day. That's when I knew this was not good. And so part of the initial agreement was there was a set salary plus a commission that I was going to get off of multiple locations to be opened. I'm trying to word this without like making it obvious to anybody that may see this that knows me. But basically what I was going to do was be a GM of an entirely new branch of said company. The goal was to open multiple locations within the area that we were operating in. And I was going to have a base salary and then 10% commission off of what each location brought in. So it would have been big.
Sure.
So with that being said, I'm basically being like, I'm getting the keys handed to me for what could potentially be another section of a multi-million-dollar business, but I'm not getting any guidance on what to do. It's almost like I'm kind of just expected to know all the ins and outs of doing that. I'm like, listen, given that each location was going to be in the same industry as what I already did professionally, I can grow a shop. I can make the shop look nice. I can advertise the shop, but like, I don't know what you want me to do. Now, I'm not going to shift all the blame on him, my old boss, because I equally could have put some effort into trying to fish some of this communication out of him as well. However, I am not the one running a multi-million-dollar business. If I was in his shoes, I would be calling the shots. You know what I mean?
Ultimately, it is his responsibility too, right? If someone's in charge,
you need to guide
everything
me.
happens under him. Like,
yeah, like this is your company.
Are his responsibility. I mean, it sounds like a little bit of future faking here too, where he sells you a dream of what it could be, and a lot of jobs do that to an extent. But sometimes the difference between what they sell you and then what it really is, that gap can be much wider in some places than others. And
and the first red flag was, that's what I was getting at, talking about the salary. So I wasn't going to see any of that 10% commission until we started having locations open, built, open, running, revenue. None of that was in sight yet. So I said, okay, since we're off on weekends, I am going to do cars on the side for extra money, because I cannot live. I was offered $3,200 a month starting salary plus the 10% commission. Now, I was willing to do that, and I said multiple times casually in conversation during the weeks leading up to me moving down there that I'm okay with $3,200 a month, but on weekends I'm going to do side work for extra income, because I cannot live on $3,200 a month. My rent alone was $2,200 a month. Now we have car insurance, we got groceries, we got this, we got that. $3,200 is not possible, and I have another girl on the way on top of that, which, by the way, that was $7,500 to pay for that, because we did I forget what it's damn, how did I forget what it wasn't? A hospital birth. It was like we went to like a midwife center kind of thing. It was cool. It was really cool. But yeah, so rather than spending, because we didn't have insurance, rather than spending $30,000 to have a kid at the hospital, because you're getting fed $800 turkey sandwiches, you can just do $7,500 on a payment plan throughout the course of the pregnancy, and just go that way. So there was a lot going on, and $3,200 wasn't going to cover it. So everything was cool. Apparently that was fine. It wasn't until I got there that it was a problem. Mm. So the first time I go to the warehouse, they wanted to test some new inventory that they were trying to offer. And it was me, the boss, and then I guess we'll call him the tech guy. He runs the website. He fixes. He does all that, the marketing, the website, whatever. I more or less got cornered, saying, "Hey, I know you said you were going to do this on weekends, but we want you to put all of your energy into the company." Now, what do you say to that? You can't say no, because that's a respectable thing to request. But had you told me that before I moved, then there would have been a higher salary thing happening, or I wouldn't have
changed the arrangement on you in a way where it was okay until it wasn't okay, and then that puts you in a bind.
So I felt like I got duped into coming down there, because I could have easily survived on the $3,200, and then if I just did like 3 or 4 cars the entire month in my free time, a total of maybe 15, 20 working hours, I could have made another $2,000, $2,500 a month. Fine. Could have got by with that. But yeah, I felt like I got swindled into coming down there. And I think, and you might know this, sounds like a pretty narcissistic move to manipulate somebody to come work for you and essentially trap them, because they know that you were using basically the last of your money to get down there. Because
exploitative with a little future faking is what I would call that.
So that move cost me $12,000 when all was said and done. We used pods to move because there was nobody really cheaper. Pods alone, I have the receipt still, was like $5,200 just to move the stuff. That wasn't even driving 2 cars, one of which is my Element, which maybe gets 15 miles to the gallon, and we're up against an 1,800-mile trip. The gas in my wife's car, food for me and the wife and our one daughter we only had at the time, Airbnbs, campsites, because we were alternating camping and Airbnbs. The deposit on the apartment, which was another $4,500. Setting up all the utilities, getting the first week of groceries, things of that nature, just getting everything down there and set up and everything like that. All in all, came out to about $12,000.
It's a lot.
Yeah, this was kind of like later in the story where like lies were starting to be told, but I was sent $3,000 via PayPal from the company for moving expenses. I only asked for compensation simply because people told me that I should. Otherwise, for the 5-6 weeks leading up to the move day, I was working my ass off. I was so busy. My shop was so busy. I was hiring other detailers that I was friends with to come in and help me, and was paying them like 20, $30 an hour. Like, that's how much I hustled. I managed to save about 25 grand in 5-6 weeks while paying them, while topping off products, whatever,
How long was it going to be planned for you to take the 10% from these other businesses, right? How long was it proposed that it was going to take to do that? Because that seems like it would take a while. It seems like...
Well, the goal was 2 or 3 years to have 3 locations. The reason they were moving to a bigger warehouse was because now the smaller warehouse they were in, that was going to be shop number 1. So that one was already, like, the ball was already rolling on that. So that was kind of another thing that kind of sold me, because he told me he was looking at a bigger warehouse in the same complex, and then we already would have had a shop to start with. So I was like, okay, things are already like kind of getting set up a little bit. Man, there was so much that went on with this. I don't even know where to really go from here. So I guess, let's backpedal. So there was no communication for like 6 weeks. And then I eventually, that's how I got sidetracked, because I started talking about doing side work. So eventually it got to a point where I would come home and I'm talking to my wife and I'm like, I can't live like that. I can't do this. I'm going to start running ads on my business page and trying to start booking cars again. So I did. I started running an ad. I ran a special for a full exterior detail with a quick polish and a 1-year ceramic coating for like $400 just to start bringing people in. And within the first week, I had like 10 or 11 people messaging me, lots of nice cars, Porsche 911s, Hellcats, you name it, whatever. Well, me and him got into it. He didn't know that I was doing this right away. I was kind of shocked, because I was shocked he just didn't see my ads. He only lived like 20 minutes from me. But we got into an argument. I am the one that sort of initiated the shitstorm that was to come, because one day after work, I texted him. This was on a Friday. I texted him and I said, basically, like, what are we doing, dude? Like, what is the goal here? What is going on? I was like, you're giving me no guidance here, and I don't, like, I'm barely allowed to have any input on the marketing or social media side of this, because he had like a team of like Eastern European people that he hired, I guess cheap labor. And anytime that I wanted to post something on the business page that I was supposed to be the GM of, I had to run it through them to get approval, and this, that, and the other thing. And the guy that was managing the ads, we were running a messenger campaign for a specific service, a sale, and the average cost, we were going over this in the Wednesday meeting 2 days prior, the average cost per message on his ad was like, it was something crazy, like $70 or $80 per message. Now, to put that into perspective, my average cost to sell a $500 service, like with the rate of messages that I get, is typically $5 to $8 per message. Now we're
What does that
doing
mean per message though? Like $5 to $8 per message. What does that mean?
That's what it breaks down to, based on the budget that you put at the ad and the frequency that people are messaging you.
So the 70, 80 number, is that like a revenue or a profit number?
No,
or expense?
That's an expense.
Okay.
So I'll explain it a little bit easier. We were going to be essentially advertising the same thing that I already had a lot of experience advertising in and do to this day. Now, my average cost when I run the ad is $5 to $8 for every time somebody messages me. That's what it costs me.
Okay.
For him, it was costing $70 or $80 every time someone messaged, and it made no sense to me. That was the talking point that opened the floodgates of just narcissism from this guy.
So you challenged his control.
Hold on. So what I said to him, I don't remember. I have all the text messages still too, for I don't know why, but I wrote him this thing and I'm like, dude, like, what's going on? I'm drowning over here. I need to make more money. You know, like, what is going on? I'm not getting any input in the marketing side of this without approval, or I'm getting, kind of getting like, nobody really wants to hear what I have to say for some reason. And then I said to him, it's gotten so bad, dude. I started running my own ad. I've got this car, this car, this car, this kind of car. They're all messaging me and they want in. What is the problem? And why can't your social media manager or your marketing manager that owns 25% of your multi-million-dollar company, why can't he seem to figure this out when I just literally threw a turd at the wall and it stuck and I got $5,000 worth of work in my inbox already in the first week? So at first he kind of skimmed over it. He didn't really say much about it. He was like, oh, sorry, dude, whatever. It was like, it was cool. And then it was a mutual thing. All right, cool. We're going to come in Monday. Here's the plan. Here's what I need you to do. Let's get this shit going, dude. I don't want you to struggle. Like, let's fucking do it. I'm like, all right, cool.
That sounds good.
Let's go. Monday comes around. I come in. I'm in the warehouse as per usual. He comes in and says, good morning to everybody else. Doesn't say a word to me. Then, lunchtime comes and he's kind of chatting with everybody else. Oh, what are you getting? What are you getting? Doesn't say anything to me. I texted my wife and I'm like, I'm like, something's up. So he doesn't say anything to me. He texts me that night and says, I can't believe you would fuck me over. I would have never done you wrong. So I call him and I'm like, what are you talking about? And this was where I started to kind of really hone in on what I guess narcissism really is. Because despite everything that I explained to him, I tried to give him my perspective. Bro, I just moved all the way here. Everything I've already discussed on this stream so far. I tried to explain my side of things and why, as a grown man with one kid, a wife, 2 German Shepherds, by the way, so it might as well have been 3 kids because it's not cheap to feed dogs that size.
No.
And then I have another kid on the way. I was 30 years old. I'm like, dude, I am 30 years old. I cannot live like this. I need more money. He could not understand my predicament. All he cared about was the fact that I started advertising work for myself, even though I said I wasn't going to do it. That's all he cared about. The only thing he gave a shit about. He didn't want to hear anything else I had to say. He didn't care that I moved 1,800 miles. He didn't care that I had and to this day, I have above average financial responsibilities. And he just
Because
couldn't.
he initially agreed to that, though, too. Like, he initially agreed that you would be able to do that.
Yes, but it was only a problem because I said that I was going to stop doing it, or that I wasn't going to do it and focus all my time.
And so even though he knew also now that you weren't going to be able to make it off of $3,200 a week or a month. So like he knew that. And so you did something for yourself to take care of yourself because you weren't going to be able to make it on $3,200 a month. But that was like a slap in the face to him. That.
Yeah.
Okay. I see.
Because he could not understand. This wasn't just for myself. He could not understand a 30-year-old man with 2 kids, 2 dogs, a wife, rent payment that is 2/3 what your salary is. He could not understand that I felt like I had to do what I had to do as a grown man to make money, to make sure that my family is not eating out of soup cans.
And that's the other thing about it too. You didn't really have control over the growth of those other businesses anyway. Like if you're going to be, that's what he wants you to grow and get part of that 10% from the companies that will exist in the future, the new warehouses. You got to have more power and control, or at the very least direction on how that goes.
Well, and that was the dynamic that I was experiencing. Was there was like 3 or 4 other people. We had our own group chat in Slack. There was all the people that handled the website, marketing, whatever. And like I hop in there, I'm supposed to be the GM of the operation that they are trying to build, but it felt like I was the new guy at work, which I was technically, but when I'm coming in and I'm supposed to be like in charge, why do I have to sit here and ask for approval to do certain things? Why do I have to run it by people that are technically supposed to be working for me, whether or not this is okay to post on the business page? Even though I had already shown I know how to grow a detailing business.
Yeah, so it sounds like on one hand, there's a lack of trust in you, but on the other hand, a lot of trust in you for you to be doing the position. But like he gave you the job, but then not trust you to make the decisions that are best for the job.
But never communicated with me either. And he at one point threw it back in my face that apparently I just need to be micromanaged. I can't figure it out myself.
He threw it in your face. And all of this, and I think part of what I learned from even hearing some of the situation is, and I've heard some of this before, of course, but it's like being as clear as possible with everyone is the answer to a lot of these things. And I think a lot of people don't do that because they get uncomfortable or for whatever reason, right? It doesn't happen. But he wasn't clear with you, for one. And it sounds like he just didn't have a clear direction for you on how to move into the role.
I'll give him this. It was clear what the objective was. What was not clear was all the little puzzle pieces we had to put together to get there.
And that's everything, though. Those little puzzle pieces are everything.
Well, and I said this to him. If I owned a multi-million-dollar company and I was hiring someone to handle a whole branch of this company, granted it was a separate LLC, but same company nonetheless, I would make sure to have some kind of daily goals that I needed this person to achieve. I didn't get that. I came in the morning, rather than saying, Drew, what are your plans today? Didn't even put it on me. Like, what are your plans today? What are you going to contribute to my company? I got nothing. You know, if you're not going to give me like a list of things that you wanted me to do, then what the fuck, dude? Like, and he wanted a lot of that to come from the group chat with the tech and marketing people. But I'm like, this guy can't even figure out how to run a proper Facebook ad for this situation. What makes you think I'm going to listen to him?
Right. It sounds like that wasn't a good investment on his part either, to hire that other team for advertising that had such a high per message.
No, they do a good job. I'm not going to take that away from them. But again, looking at it from my perspective, if it was my company and I'm already the CEO and I'm taking on someone who's going to be basically the right hand of this company, then it's going to be me and you hanging out and figuring this shit out. Yeah. Not me just throwing you in with all of my minions and you just guys figure it out amongst yourselves. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm in this for big business, you need to treat me like I'm here for big business, not just like I'm another employee. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he was clear on some things, but then not on everything.
No,
and
not like I said.
And that parts where he wasn't clear on everything, though, that's where it crumbles.
That was the important stuff. I knew what our end goal was. But like, again, and here's another example. He like told me like, this is your baby. This is your bit. Like, this is your part of the company. Do what you need to do. And then the first time that I really took initiative was I went over to the shop. I stopped coming to the warehouse. I started going to the shop and taking inventory on things that I felt we could use to get this place set up. Now, keep in mind the tens of thousands of dollars in shop equipment that I already had and was going to donate to this shop because I was like, oh, well, I'm going to be fucking rich. I don't care about any of this, you know? Aside from the tools and equipment, which we had to do the work, I looked at it as, okay, this is my company. And I visualized, I'm walking into the door, into the waiting room. What do I want to see as a customer, right? I'm putting myself in their shoes. So I was basically told, figure out what we need for the shop, and then I'll give you the card. I'll give you the company credit card. Make this place a presentable place for people to come. So I did it very respectfully, knowing the amount of money, which, by the way, that month, I think, I'm pretty sure they broke $250,000 in revenue that month. I did a very respectable $3,000 Amazon list for couches for the waiting room, a reasonably sized TV. And by reasonably, I mean, it wasn't an 80-inch. It was like a 32, a magazine. Like, I thought of everything, little lights, magazine rack, a coffee bar, like just little amenities for people to have while they're sitting in there for 5-6 hours or more if they stay. So I send him the list. Took him like a day or two before he ever got back to me when I asked them about, did you look it over? Is that okay? I tried to keep it reasonable. I could have easily spent $10,000 to do this, but sure. I kept it reasonable. I thought $3,000 was very reasonable to fully furnish and fix up a shop and make it nice, down to the fucking coffee stirrers, you know what I mean? And none of that happened. And he shows up with what I could only equate to a 2-piece, like those little cafe seats and table you get for like your patio. He just pulls that in and like, I'm like, dude, that's it. Like, this looks terrible. You have this company has the money to make this shop look high end right out of the gate for a very reasonable price.
What do you say to this?
I didn't say it to him. But I wanted to. I'm pretty sure he knew what I was thinking when he saw my face when I see him bringing essentially patio furniture into a shop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no, dude, if people are going to be waiting here for hours, they can't sit on that. You know what I mean?
He's being cheap in the wrong ways, right? It sounds like he had like a good mentality in some ways, but in other ways, he was just short-circuiting himself.
But like, you want me to run this side of the company, but you're not going to let me do. I didn't think I was disrespecting his budget at all.
Yeah, I mean, $250,000 a month revenue, $3,000.
I felt like $3,000 was even a lot, but I said, listen, I know this is like, it's a decent chunk of change, but this is every single thing we need, down to power strips, coffee stirrers, and cups. Like, I literally sat in that room and visualized everything. I didn't even worry about my office. There was a desk in there, whatever, and like a crappy chair. I didn't even think about the office. It was the waiting room and like one or two utilities for the shop, but most of that was the waiting room because I wanted people to come in. I'm like, if this is my company, then when people come in, I want them to be wowed.
Sure.
Like, hey, man.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Here, you know what? Here's I'll take your key. Here's the, we'll put it on the RO. We'll pull your car right in. Go grab a coffee. Have some snacks, watch TV, whatever you want to do. Fine. That's the biggest part of that kind of business is customer experience. Doesn't matter how good their vehicle came out when it's done. It's all about the experience while they were there waiting. So that's where it was like, what the hell, man? Because like you yelled at me for an hour and a half straight, which I didn't even touch base on that, but that phone call was actually the very reason that I decided I'm getting out of here. But you want me to run this company, you're telling me this, you're telling me that, and then like you're not giving me the reins at all.
He was hamstringing you, is what I would call it. He wasn't giving you the ability to do what you needed to do.
Yeah, and again, I felt like I was being very respectable to the budget. Like I feel like if I was just any old clown that wasn't thinking, I would have ran up a $20,000 bill buying, electronically reclining couches and an 80-inch TV and doing neon all over like I could have done something like that, but no. I kept it very simple. The whole layout was going to be like IKEA.
I mean, it's like he's got to trust you or not trust you. Like he trusts you to do all this other stuff, but then the other stuff, he didn't extend the trust to those areas too. But if they're going to trust you and he's going to put you in charge of this, you got to really like follow through on that.
You got to let me do what I need to do, man, and
because those little things, the little things are what matters in this kind of stuff. Like the little pieces are what makes the big piece. That makes the whole thing. And if you don't get the little things right, everything can crumble from there. So,
well, from that point on, man, I felt like I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I'm like, you don't want to put max effort out of the gate getting this shop grown or anything. And like, what do you want to do? But back to that phone call that we got sidetracked from, when I called him after he said, I can't believe you fucked me over, and we briefly touched on it, but it turned into literally, dude, over an hour and a half of him screaming into the phone. Like at some points I'm like this, holding my phone away because he's just going off on me, right? And it got personal. It got very personal, right? So I'll give you an example. I don't mind saying it, but listen, when we were in Texas, the area we were in, child trafficking, dude, horrible. I mean, I had to turn Amber Alerts off on my phone because we were getting like 6 or 7 of them a day. Kids are going missing. Now, my wife is small. She's fairly vulnerable. And by the time we got down there, we got down there beginning of May. So she was like probably 4 months pregnant. Plus we had a toddler. She didn't want to be out in public without me. So we were driving around one day, exploring the area on one of my days off. We happened to drive past the Honda dealer. At the time, she had a 2015 hybrid Civic. And I made a joke saying, given the current car market, and we have a sub 100,000 mile hybrid, I guarantee that salesman would be foaming at the mouth for this car. And I bet we can make money on this car despite you owning $10,000 on it. Well, on her own accord, she contacted Carvana. Carvana came to our house. She owed $10,000. No, it was $10,500 on the car. They not only came to our house and picked up the car, but within 2 hours, I had about $16,000 in my bank account. So they bought her out of the car, and we pocketed like $5,000.
It's pretty impressive.
Because the car was not going to get used. She said it. I am not leaving this house without you because of the child trafficking that happens in Texas, which a lot of people talk about how great Texas is, but they seem to leave that out. Because I had no idea. I didn't really think about it, but, I guess the border is right there. So she told me that she wanted to get rid of it, but he held that against me because he was kind of offering her a job. She was kind of interested because she wanted to get out of the house. And if it was like the kind of thing where like she could bring our daughter to work with her and like just work in an office, whatever, then she would take a job. And he called us idiots for selling her car, even though, I mean, the first logical explanation would be, okay, she would just come to work with me and we'd save gas anyway. But like he starts bringing that kind of stuff into it. It's one thing to be mad that you felt like I stabbed you in the back because you weren't holding up your end of the deal clearly, and I decided to do some grown man shit and do what I need to do for my family, and you got mad about it, but to start bringing in personal stuff like that, which that wasn't even that personal, but he technically brought my wife into it, so that pissed me off. But he's just got into a lot of things about me because he knows I struggle with depression and anxiety and motivation issues in some areas and things like that, and starts like kind of throwing that shit in my face, like, kind of like I should have expected that kind of, thing from you. It went on,
belittling.
It went on for like an hour and a half, and then it was like another half an hour of like, okay, when we come in Monday, all right, dude, like I understand now. Let's get it done. Like, fine. We were just gonna, what I thought was two grown men just shaking off the dust and saying, all right, let's get to it. Enough bullshitting. Let's get it done. And yeah, and then I come in the next week, and that situation with buying that furniture happened. And by that point, I already said to my wife, I'm like, this is how bad things are getting, and we don't even have the first location even started yet. I was like, what's going to happen if we do grow this? It becomes multi-million-dollar revenue company. And then I do decide that I don't want to do this anymore because it's taking up all of my time or this or that. Because like, listen, and it for any other person, it probably would have been a great time. But there was lots of discussion about flying here for this convention or flying there for this convention that's industry related or whatever. And like, first of all, I don't like flying. That's why I drove all the way down there. I don't like flying. And I don't want to be away from my family for extended periods of time because we're talking like a week or two at a time. I'm like, I can't do that, And so it was just like, I didn't think I was going to last that long anyway. I went into it seeking a fresh opportunity just to live a little and take a risk and see what the reward may have been. But maybe I ended up cursing myself because I even kind of had this thing in the back of my head that within probably 5 years, I'd probably just, if I was making that amount of money and saved it for, 2-3 years, I'm done. I'm leaving. Like, I'd probably make $1 million and then just leave.
Right.
Like that's more than enough money for me. To me, that was like living my everyday life as it is, but almost hitting the lottery at the same time. And then I would just make an adequate amount and I would have been happy going home and going back part-time, running my own business again or whatever, So then Wednesday comes around and I just got to a point a little bit after the furniture was dropped off, and I texted him and I said, hey man, do you have a minute to chat? And he was like, what's up? And so I just ended up texting with him because, I couldn't be bothered to come over from the other warehouse that was 2 minutes away. And I just said, look, man, I don't think this is going to work out for me. I love you. I still consider you like a brother to me. but and I'm sorry that like we went through all this, and but I don't think this is for me, dude. I'm sorry. Like I think I need to stay on my own. That's why I threw away a career at Mercedes-Benz as a technician to pursue doing my own thing. Because unfortunately, by the time I got what used to be my dream job of being around Mercedes all day, because they're my favorite cars because of the history and things like that, but I threw that away, and I just kind of said like, hey man, I think I just need to stay on my own, dude. I think I operate the best when I am just my own person.
He probably didn't take that well.
Well, I tried to let it off as easily as I could, and it just was what it was. And I already had cars booked, you know what I mean, for the following week. I already had work lined up. I was going to get right to it. So he's like, all right, man, well, like, I appreciate you telling me, and like, thanks for doing it now and not down the road or anything. And, I respect your honesty and things like that. And everything seemed cool. So I said, all right, well, I'll finish out the week. We had a client had an appointment on Saturday, which we were going to start working Saturdays because we needed business. So if somebody was only available on a weekend, then whatever we got to do until we got revenue coming in, and it doesn't matter.
How long were you there at this point?
So we got down there the beginning of May, and then I started working there, I want to say, so we got there May 2nd. I think it was like a Tuesday, and I started the next Monday. So it was somewhere around the 8th or the 9th of May, and I left somewhere around like the end of June. I don't remember the exact day, but it was the end of June. So it was like
2 months.
Just about 2 months. It was like 6 weeks of that was warehouse bullshit, and then the last like week and a half was the arguing and the trying to make things happen, and it just wouldn't.
Yeah, because it sounds like you guys just weren't on the same page by a point, and then once you weren't on the same page, then you weren't able to get on the same page again.
Well, and it honestly, it wasn't just what was happening at work. It was the dynamic between just us as people.
And that's where he was kind of being a dick, like the throwing anxiety. Well, if he's throwing anxiety and depression in your face, that's
but what I'm saying is not as boss to employee, but just as person to person. There was a life lesson that I learned here, and anyone that sees this video, take heed. Me and him used to talk on the phone almost every day for almost 2 years, whether it was texting or phone call. I mean, we'd be on the phone for easily a fucking hour a day.
You're like brothers. You're like brothers at this point.
That was like the closest I was friends with somebody since high school. If there's a lesson that I learned, there is a big difference between knowing somebody over the phone and knowing somebody face to face in a room where nobody else can hear what's being talked about.
That's a big one. You see that in dating a lot too. Like if you talk to someone on the phone, the in-person energy can be completely different. So
listen, I'm not an angel. Sometimes I say things that are, I don't say things to people that are offensive, but the conversations I'll have with my wife, my outlooks on a lot of things probably offend some people. But some of the stuff that would come out of his mouth like made me uncomfortable, and like I'm kind of like, I'm from New Jersey, bro. You know how it is. That like I tell everybody, Jersey's not a state, it's a lifestyle. You're just a natural born just douche. You just are. You know what I mean? Like you just are. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like that's kind of just the nature of growing up in that state, whether you realize it or not. People are nice there.
Compared to other places, yes. I think New York, New Jersey, this corridor, probably the douchiest corridor of the world. If I had to guess.
Man. It's brutal. People are nice, but they don't want to hear about how your day is going. Let's put it that way. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it made me uncomfortable. Like just some of the things he would say, and I'm not going to say them because I don't want anything to happen to like your video or whatever. But some of it was like, oh, okay, that's something I've never fucking heard before, or an outlook I never, so.
And this stuff, when did it come out? Like, did that kind of stuff come out when you were talking to him on the phone before, or did it not come out?
Kind of.
Okay.
But not to the degree that it would come out when I'm hanging out at his house, drinking beer and chain smoking cigarettes and shooting guns. You know what I mean?
I think this is the other part of it here too. I think business does change relationship dynamics too. Like some people will say, don't get into business with your friends. And
don't go into business with anybody. Don't ever have a partner. If you can do it on
I've heard that too. Yeah.
If you can do it on your own, do it on your own and hire the right people to build the business. But do not go into business with somebody else because money does shit. Yeah. Money does shit to people. You know what I mean? And there was a very clear indicator that the money that the company was making was having an effect. Because we're talking about a dude, and this is why we got along so well. We're talking about a dude who was a teenager in the late 90s, early 2000s, grew up watching Viva La Bam and Jackass and CKY and loved skateboarding. He was from California, so there's all that. Like, we were around the same scene, the same music, the same hobbies, the same whatever. We were like the same person. He was West Coast, I was East Coast. That was the main difference, right? I mean, we both even wore Vans, like we had the same shoes. But like his background is a lot worse than mine. I've never even so much as been arrested, but he's got felony charges. He's got past drug abuse history. I'm not judging him, but just giving you an idea of like that kind of person figuring something out to make a company that's pulling in millions of dollars, right? So like, it's going to be a little bit different with someone like that. You know what I mean? Like it's not, I'm not trying to sound judgmental or like compartmentalize anybody, or it's not a blanket statement, but if you've ever hung around people, there's just certain people where it's like, let me just put it this way. It was the classic douchebag got rich kind of scenario. You know what I mean? It was one of those things. So
you do see that out there. They do wind up getting wealthy sometimes.
Yeah. So, because I'll tell you what, I have plenty of people in my network that are worth a lot of money, and the ones that are humble, you know who they are. And the guys that somehow figured something out and threw something at a wall and got it to stick and made a lot of money off of it, they have a completely different demeanor. Because that company was mostly funded because of Dogecoin. Believe it or not. Because he didn't have a whole lot of money. And then the Dogecoin thing was happening, and he put like $2,000 in when it was hot.
How much did he make out of it?
Over 10 grand.
All right. That's not even that much, even for crypto standards.
But it was enough off of a shit coin to give the funds necessary to at least get the ball rolling with the company.
You got a little capital, right? You got a little capital to work with.
Yeah, so not saying it would have never happened, but this is how it happened.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like he was working 3 jobs to save that money to raise the capital.
Now, he played shitcoin roulette. That's what you call that in the crypto world. And there still is some shitcoin roulette out there too in the crypto world. I just think it's coming to an end soon. I think there's going to be one more bull cycle, and then I don't think ever again. I don't think.
It depends, man. I missed out on Solana. I know we're changing subject here, but I missed out on Solana because one guy that I used to hang out in his chat rooms, he was all about AI and stuff like that. And he always said, guys, make sure you're buying Solana now. This was last summer.
He was right.
It was $30 a coin, and guess what? What is it? Over $300 now?
It was $150 not that long ago.
Yeah.
It's dipped to like 130.
Yeah, last I checked, it was over $200, and I was like, damn it.
Yeah. So he called it good. I think it even went down to like $9 or $10 last summer.
Yeah.
So, and that's even better. But, I think there's going to be projects that happens to. It's just not going to be as common anymore. Like this upcoming year, there still can be a couple projects that do that. But this is the end. Yeah. There's BTC ETFs and Ethereum ETF starting July 1st or July 2nd. That's big institutional money.
I feel like once those all get established, all the BS is just going to wash out.
They're going to get swept away. So what's going to happen is big boys are going to win. Yeah. So like big boys, Bitcoin, Ethereum, a couple good alts, Solana maybe, AVAX, Ondo. These kinds of things will probably make it. And then the rest of them, they had their time. Like every shitcoin 3 years ago had their time.
Yeah.
They did 10x, 20x, 30x from the bottom, if not more. But you can't expect that every time around. But what other lessons did you learn from this whole experience here?
So the first one was, like I said, meeting someone in person is a lot different than meeting them on the phone or being friends with them on the phone. Unfortunately, I did not have the time to do so because I needed to save as much money as possible. But if you're thinking about moving across the country for a job opportunity, take the time to go out there for like a week, get to understand the company, the people that are in it, the dynamic, the area that you're moving to. Because that was the other thing. I had no idea what Texas looked like until it was too late and we were already there. You know what I mean? So I learned a hard lesson there. Like I said, I just took a shot in the dark. I didn't ask any questions. I looked at a few videos that a realtor put up about Frisco, Texas. It's a nice area, but considering Lake George is 20 minutes from my house and the Adirondacks are 10 minutes that way, you can't live in flat land, man. You just can't. I got the mountains both sides of my town,
I'd also say the details, like just the details of things are very important. Like what are the plans here to grow these other parts of the company that I'm supposed to get 10% on it? And
that's a life lesson that's kind of universal about really anything in life. Sure. Any kind of relationship is that you got to stop. You can't focus on what the goal of the situation is. You need to figure out how to get there.
The plan. It's the plan, the action item steps, everything. And that's the hardest part. You know this as an entrepreneur and someone who does multiple Facebook pages. Like the idea is the easy part. The end goal is the easy part. But getting from point A to point F, that's the hard part. Like B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Like that's where the magic happens. And they say, like anyone can have a good plan. Anyone can have a good goal, but the real ones, they got good action items and good execution, right? And that requires at least having a thought process of how you're going to get there. You might be adaptive when you're in that process, and in fact, you probably should be. But there's got to be something that you're at least willing to do, because that's the hardest part, knowing where to put the footwork. And I think if he could have given you some guidance on that, like, hey, I want you to try to put footwork in these areas. I'm going to give you responsibility over these things, and you can have this amount of accountability and responsibility for what the shop's going to look like. And just giving you that, like, I'm trusting you with this much, I may as well go all the way and trust you with all of it. If I'm going to trust you with this, I may as well trust you with the rest too.
Well, it would have changed so many things if I was being managed by the person that owns the company and not the people that are in the background that nobody even really knows their names.
Yeah. Hamstrung. That's hamstrung.
He kind of just threw me to the dogs, and I was supposed to just kind of navigate my way through this, talking to other people that do not specialize in that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I didn't know how I feel. It is what it is, man. I mean, I walked away with a lot of stress and anxiety that ended up coming up. It was traumatic, dude. You know what I mean? Like, do you know how hard it was to not only So the first half of that was dealing with the stress of what was going on there, or should I say the lack of what was going on there. But then to have to make the decision that you're going to leave the only source of income that you have, cold turkey, no 2 weeks, no nothing, because that's the only way that was going to work out. Because we actually didn't touch base on what happened the rest of that week after I told him I was leaving.
Some toxicity is what happened.
Well, I guess I'll get into that in a minute, but I had to leave a job that was my only source of income in a state I've never been, with a lot of financial responsibility on me, and pray that something was going to work. And thankfully it did. And through that, I met a lot of great people. And then towards the end of us living there, I managed to figure something out with social media that helped fund us get home. And that's why I'm not going to go on a tangent about it, but that's why I love Facebook, because Facebook is actually what single-handedly changed that entire situation for me. Because despite being able to make 10, 12, 15,000 a month, between personal expenses and business expenses to keep up with supplies and advertising for that amount of volume, my personal expenses at one point was like $8,200 a month to live my life, support my family, and keep that business going. Between the marketing agencies I hired and everything else, I was spending over $8,000, over $72,000 a year. Most of this country doesn't even make what I was spending, and that's small time. I mean, It's not weird for a company to spend millions a year in advertising, but for someone like me, that's a lot going on, dude. So it's like,
that's a lot of overhead.
Well, that was a lot to handle because I didn't have those kinds of expenses when I was in New York, because my reputation had gotten so good that I didn't have to advertise as much. I was finally gaining the word of mouth. So a lot of that was referrals, and so it was a lot going on, because I'm like, dude, I'm making the most money I've ever made in my life, but I'm also spending the most amount of money I've ever spent in my life. You know what I mean? So there was so much happening. And on top of that, there was the drama that was still happening at my previous workplace. So I'll get into that. So after that day, when I said, I'll finish out the week and I'll help you with the customer we had an appointment with on Saturday, because I didn't want to leave him hanging. I didn't hate the dude. But I wasn't going to leave him hanging on a large job. Like, it was a large job. It was a minimum 8 to 10 hour job on that vehicle, and I would have hated to do it alone. So I wasn't going to leave him hanging. And so then I get a text. That was Wednesday. I get a text Thursday morning around 6:30 before I even woke up, and it was, the old, hey, doesn't look like we're going to need you today. We don't have a lot going on, whatever. So I sarcastically said, all right, I guess you don't need me Friday then either, right? He's like, yeah, I guess. I was like, all right, well, could you still want me to help you on Saturday with that appointment? And he said, if you could do that, I'd be so grateful. I said, absolutely, dude. Like, I'm not going to leave you hanging on that. And I was like, what time you need me there? He's like, try to get to the shop around 7:30. And then he texted me Friday night and said, hey, the car is already there. So I'll get in a little after you. Just get the thing started and I'll come in and then I'll join up with you. So what would have technically been a day off, whether I was working there or not anyway, what was it? I get there and I don't see this car outside the way he said it was parked outside. It's not there when I get there. I'm thinking, okay, maybe he parked it inside. So I go inside. It's not in there. I'm like, okay, maybe it's at the warehouse. So I go around the corner. It's not outside the warehouse. It's not inside the warehouse. It's nowhere to be seen. And I text them and I say, hey, where's the car? I tried to call him, but he didn't answer. So I texted him and said, hey, I don't see this car here. And I don't hear anything. So by now it's like 8, going on 8:30, going on 9 o'clock. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to start packing my shop, like all my cabinet, like my storage cabinets, all my detail shop stuff. I started packing it into my car. But before I did that, I gave him a chance. It was about 9:30. I just started detailing my car. I'm like, hey, I'll just clean my interior. It's dirty, give it a wash, whatever. Just keep myself busy. And I had a coffee in me, and I was like kind of wired, because it was a big job I thought I had. So I needed something to do. And anyway, so then I'm not hearing anything. It's going on like quarter to 11, almost 11 o'clock, still nothing. So then I start packing my shop. He finally shows up almost noon, and he's on the phone. So he just pulls up, walks in the shop. Now that shop had a mezzanine above it that had overflow supplies for the warehouse. He comes in, he's on the phone talking to somebody, walks right past me, doesn't say anything, doesn't even look at me, goes upstairs, grabs whatever he needed, comes back down, nothing. He didn't even look my direction, nothing. Gets in his car and just leaves. I immediately messaged my wife and said, I am in for a world of pain with petty bullshit. Yeah. Because he just wanted me to waste my time, or I think to signal that he felt like I wasted his time.
Probably.
That's what I took that as, was he was trying to get me back.
Right.
So then from there, man, it just kept going, and he was arguing with me through text, and because I left prior to going down there, I had company banners for my shop. I kept all the bottles of all the stuff I ever used that I bought from them, and I just left it all there because I brought it down with me. It was in one of my boxes, but I made it a point to leave the banners on the floor and all the empty bottles. I just left them on the floor. In the box, I put the banners on the floor, but I left all the empty bottles I collected in the box and just left it there. So he texted me, oh, real nice, for, leaving this. And I was like, I just tried to play it off like I didn't have room for that particular box. I wanted to get my main stuff out of here. And it just turned into shit talking for the next couple days. And then I was offered a severance check for 1 month's salary, which I was a little shocked by, but I was like, whatever. So I roll up there and I get handed a severance check, and I did a mobile deposit. I was like, okay. It wasn't going to be nearly enough for us to get home. So I had already planned that we were probably just going to finish out our lease, and I would just work as much as I could to save as much as I could. And and then that was really it. And then I got blocked from the company Facebook group. And that's when shit started being said about me that was completely wrong. So, and I have a
smear campaign.
Well, I have a lot of friends in the industry that were in that group, and they would screenshot me almost everything that he would say. It got to a point I just had to tell everybody, just leave me alone. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know. Just stop, please. It's pissing me off. But, like he's making like a post in the group talking about, oh, that's the last time I ever, pay for someone to work for me or something, or pay to relocate somebody. I'm like, bro, between the initial moving expense payment and the severance check, you only scratched 50% of what it even cost me to get down here to begin with. So I don't know where you're getting this idea that you paid for me to do this. Like, you didn't pay shit, dude. You paid half. Okay, fine. Thank you anyway, but don't tell people that like I was piss broke and you had to pay for me to come down here, And I wasn't so mad that it was a lie. I was mad that I took a lot of pride, and I take a lot of pride in how hard I work. For 5-6 weeks, I'm doing multiple cars a day. I'm like in the shop like 10 hours a day. like I said, I'm hiring other guys from other shops to come help me just handle this workload because I'm busting my ass to make as much money as possible to do this. Now you're discrediting me when I busted my ass. You know what I mean? Like, I gave myself no break because I stopped working like 3 days before we were due to leave. Like, my shop stuff was one of the last things we packed because I was just trying to hold out long enough to make that couple extra grand. And like, I felt disrespected because I'm like, now you're just shitting on my hustle. You can lie about me all you want because the people that know me know. But now you're like shitting on my grind. And I don't like that because I work harder than most people. And that's why. Yeah. So like that pissed me off. And it was just one thing after the next, after the next, after the next, just stupid little petty lies that he would just say, or he'd make fun of me for Facebook. Cause there was people in there that didn't like me and they would screenshot everything that I'm doing in my life and sending it to him and he'd make fun of it in his group or whatever. And it ended up
just toxic.
Just toxic as shit, man. And he didn't realize it, but a lot of those guys respected me. And a lot of those guys were able to see who he was through his attitude in the group a little better than I really paid attention to. And
he's gossip. That's the gossip part. The gossip and triangulating, smearing other people. It's something to pay attention to. It's drama.
Well, he didn't realize how many guys reached out to me and were like, hey, dude, what are you using these days if you're not using their products anymore? I'm talking probably 30, 40 different installers. And that's big. That's not a lot of people, but that's big because if you're a high volume shop doing what we do that requires those kinds of products, you're spending at least probably $1,000 average a month on products. So we're talking the potential of $30,000 to $40,000 in revenue that could be damaged, you know? And yeah, man, he just started ruining his own company, man, by just shitting on me. And I'm just moving on, you know, like I'm trying to just move on. And it was hard because he's a very sue happy guy. I'm not going to get into his business, but he put it this way. He likes court cases against people, put it that way. So
it's petty. It's petty and vengeful.
So being under an NDA, which I agreed to sign the NDA, I didn't sign the employment contract, but I did sign the NDA. I was defenseless. I couldn't say anything publicly because one of the stipulations in there was that if I would have to compensate any damage to the business's revenue if I do or say something that affects the business. So I couldn't say anything because for all I know, me just trying to tell people basically what I told you could be seen as, oh, that damaged the business. This is how much you're going to have to, and he would have came after me. So there was two problems there. One was that I had to deal with it and just man up and just do what I need to do. The other was I grew up around people where if you had a problem with someone within that group, you scrapped. You scrapped it out and you shook hands and it was done. So I had to learn how to, I mean, it's not like I don't fight anybody. Like I haven't been in a fight since high school, but that dog was still in me and I had to just kind of mature and get past it because there was plenty of times where some of the things that I would see in screenshots, I would go like to my wife and be like, I'm about to drive over to the warehouse and just lay it down. So I had to mature and I had to just shut up about it. And the messed up part about all of it is that when I quit that day, when I got home, I made a video on my Facebook and basically said, guys, this is what's going on. It didn't work out. I'm still on good terms with them. I'm still going to, invest money into them, but I'm just going to fly on my own. I kept it really cool. Said, I don't have bad blood. It just wasn't for me. I think I must have said it 100 times in that video that it just wasn't for me. And yet it still all just went off the rails, man. And then I'll kind of close it out on him, I guess. There was so much that I missed, but dude, I can't even.
Maybe there might have to be one day.
But the final cherry on top from him, we moved back to New Jersey. It had been over a year since I left. So I quit there June of 2022, and summer of 2023, we're back in New Jersey for like 6 months by then. He calls me out of the blue. We end up sitting on the phone for like 2 hours, just like the old days, just shooting the shit. How's everything going? He's telling me about trips he's been taking, whatever, camping. And then towards the end of that conversation, I was like, hey, if it's cool with you, like, I would love to still support you. Do you care if I put an order in? Because I didn't know if, like, he had me, like, somehow blocked from there or what, I don't know, from the website. He's like, yeah, man, that's cool. And I'm thinking in my head, yeah, of course you want fucking money. And so I order a product and for a vehicle. And I go to install it on this vehicle. And it's behaving. Now, keep in mind, I've done hundreds of installations with the old product. But this one, for some reason, and it had been over a year since I used that product, so I decided to start small. The thing with that product was you would be able to apply it to an entire car before you had to remove it. I'm not going to get too far into like how ceramic coatings work, but I went to apply it. I did like half of a hood, a fender, and half of a front bumper. I let it sit for like 30 seconds, and I went to wipe it, like test it to see where it was, because it was hot and humid that day. And there's little factors you got to watch out for when you're installing something like that. I went to do a test wipe, and the shit was solid. So I'm like, this can't be the same coating, or it must be a bad batch. So I texted him like, hey, dude, something's up with this bottle. You might have a bad batch. But by this point, he allowed me back in the Facebook group. I didn't see anybody else talking about this. That company is catered not so much towards professionals, but weekend guys, like DIY people, the average consumer. But the products were so good that a lot of us pros started using it because it was good stuff. So I never hear anything back. I don't see anybody posting in there. So I'm thinking like, I'm pretty sure he tried to mess my day up. So I knew it was a different coating. I experimented a little bit with it on my wife's car. And then I did a Corvette with it. And I actually understood how that product needed to be applied. So I did it on the car. It was completely different installation. I video called my friend in California and I said, yo, is this the professional line that he came out with? Because there was the easy coating and then there was the hard coating. So I sent him videos of, like, we were chatting and I was showing him what it was doing while I was installing. He goes, oh yeah, that looks like the pro coating. And he's like, it kind of still smells like the old coating, right? And I was like, yeah, that's what threw me off. He's like, oh no, it smells like the old stuff and it looks like the old stuff, but it's absolutely not the old stuff. That's when it hit me. He bottled the professional product in the consumer bottle, knowing that I was going to apply it to it, or thinking that I was going to apply it to an entire car. And I just told you what happened when I did one small section. If I did the entire car, I would have had to sand it off. And then I would have had to do multiple steps of machine polishing. Like it would have been a multiple day project. So he took one last jab at me. Had to be, because again, this is a consumer company. If this was a bad batch and a DIY guy made that mistake, it would have been all over the group.
Sure. I mean, it's congruent with his behavior that he would do something a little petty like that.
So I couldn't believe it. So I texted him. Once I realized what it was and I figured out how to install it properly, I texted him and I said, well, you saved me over $100. Thank you, because I know what you did. So that was like the cherry on top. We're talking a year later, dude. I haven't.
Did he admit it?
No, he didn't admit it. But I know. It's obvious. You know what I mean? Because like I said, just the fact that nobody else said anything in the group, you mean to tell me I'm the only guy that happened to get a bottle like that? Come on now. Come on now. It was obvious, you know? So that was the worst boss I've ever had, man. And the ironic thing is that he started out as one of my best friends.
So that's the good lesson there too. Don't get into business with friends. Get into business by yourself and hire the right people to do the jobs. Yeah. Those are some good takeaways there. And of course there's more, but that's the takeaways to me.
That was what I told you in this almost 2 hours is that kind of that was probably 60% of what, like I said, I'm not getting into names or anything, but yeah, man, there was a lot to deal with. There's a lot of recovery I'm honestly still dealing with because, you know, like we talked about a couple of months ago, I started having side effects of DPDR and panic attacks. I've been taking magnesium and CBD again, and that's kept the panic attacks at bay. But some of the depersonalization and stuff, I'm still kind of fighting that a little bit. But I think it's just because of all the stress between everything that happened down there and then moving back to Jersey. I wasn't happy there either. I think I told you I didn't want to be there. We really only went there because we couldn't find anything where we are now. And I just started developing bad habits of just sitting in the house every day when I'm not working and just it all just started snowballing, you know.
Sure.
And
it can snowball in the wrong direction like that for sure.
So things are getting better. I've been trying to get outside a lot more. It's been tough. I feel a little crappy today because this past week we had intense heat and then we've had rain the past couple of days, but this week is supposed to start getting really nice. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's still I'm still fighting it off, just all the stress that I've gone through. And it's
processing. You got to process it all. And it might not happen. There'll be layers to the processing is how it's going to go, right? You have some of the layers have been revealed, but there's probably more layers to go as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just the derealization stuff, to be honest. Otherwise, anxiety and depression, that's easy to deal with. Panic attacks and derealization is where things start getting a little interesting. You know what I mean? That's when it's I can deal with it because I've dealt with it before. But that's the stuff that's kind of hard to deal with. Plus, going back to, like I said, it's hard to want to detail anymore because the physical effects it's having on my body. I've been having neck problems. It's causing vertigo. So having vertigo mixed in with depersonalization, which already makes you kind of nauseous and I've been in kind of a blender, you know what I mean? But I'm compared to where I was a few months ago when me and you talked the last time, I'm in a lot better spot, but there's still a lot to deal with, you know what I mean? And
I think it helped that you moved. It helped that you moved too, because you weren't doing as good in New Jersey anymore.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be back, you know, it's very easy to get outside and just stay busy. And you know, I got a new bike and I bought a little bike trailer. I bring the girls around, you know, we ride around on the trails and downtown and stuff like that. And it's nice to just be back by the mountains and, you know, things like that. So Yeah, it helped to be back here because I loved it up here where I was living in New Jersey. Like I said, I was living in Forked River. That town sucks. There's nothing to do there. And I'm tired of the beach, like I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. Yeah, there was a lot to deal with, man. And like I said, I'm still just kind of shrugging off some of the leftover kind of side effects from it, but it's been a long 2 years, man. It's been a long 2 years, and it's not all him. It wasn't that whole it's not all that situation. That was a big contributor, but it's not all of that. I don't want to give him that much credit, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's been a pretty rough road, but it's getting better. Still got to work out a couple things.
Where can people find you on Facebook?
Just my name. I mean, I don't. It's either my profile where I post car stuff constantly, or it's one of my other channels that's just car stuff.
Andrew Delgado.
Yep.
Well, my man, I appreciate you telling your story here. It sounds like we might have to do a part 2 at some point, but
yeah, probably.
It sounds like you've done pretty well here, at least getting through the whole situation. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's always good to talk to you.
Always, my man. Always, my man. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'm going to break this up into probably parts here too, just to make it more digestible for people. But
yeah,
it's been a fun one.
Yeah, probably get a couple reels out of it too.
Oh, sure. It's so many hours of material here to pop onto reels,